I think we're good right now, so if you guys want to start it off, go ahead.
All right, thanks so much. Hi, my name is Wendy Hine, and I'm with Disability Rights Wisconsin and the Disability Vote Coalition. And we're here to talk with you. I'm here with Jenny Newgart from BPDD and Jason Endres from People First Wisconsin, and we're here to talk to you about voting in the time of pandemic. So we just want to welcome you, and we're just really excited this week to be looking forward. We're so close to the election next week, and just excited to share with you our information that we have about voting, and hoping that it'll be helpful to you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk with you about voting and his perspective. So here's Jason Endres.
All right. Thanks, Wendy. Like Wendy said, my name is Jason Endres, and I am a self-advocate. I belong to People First Wisconsin, where I am the president of the state group. Why do I vote? A personal perspective on voting from Jason Endres, self-advocate. Why is voting important to you? It's very important because it's one of the ways that I can get my voice heard to the state legislature as we're voting next week on the president and other federal voting issues or like through Congress. So it's just a good way to make sure that my voice is heard, and that's why I vote.
Thanks, Jason. My name is Jenny Newgart. I am a grassroots community organizer for the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, and I work with Wendy at Disability Rights Wisconsin on the Wisconsin Disability Vote Coalition. So it's our two main organizations that work on this nonpartisan coalition together with a lot of other agencies and organizations that have a passion for making sure people with disabilities are voting and getting assistance to do that. And I just want to, before I get into these key dates, piggyback a little bit off what Jason said. I'm a big believer in voting, and that it's a right that people fought and died for, actually, and it's a responsibility as a citizen for us to do that. And I vote in every election because a lot of times it's the more local offices that impact you the most. So those are the things that are going to change things happening right in your very community. A lot of people might vote every 4 years in a presidential election, but I vote in every single election year round to make sure my voice is heard. So I think that's an important thing for people to think about. So we want to just give you an overview of what to keep in mind since we're exactly 1 week out now. And here are some key dates that you need to be aware of. So registering to vote, if you have not registered to vote yet, you can do that at your municipal clerk's office until October 30th. So, or you can do it in person on election day. Our state allows that on election day to get registered. So you can go register the same day and vote. So either way, you can do that. You can't do it online anymore or mail it in. Those are the only two deadlines that have passed. And the early in-person voting has begun a while ago. So every municipality, or like think of polling place, has their own hours for when they will allow people to come vote in person. And we're going to talk more about what is in-person voting. And also this PowerPoint is available to you. It should be on the website. So don't worry about trying to catch all these dates. And you really don't have to worry about like remembering all the things we're telling you, just to know that Wendy and I are here to help, and there are websites you can go to. So this is going to be a lot of content. Voting is just kind of hard to explain sometimes. And then some more key dates to be aware of. The deadline to request your absentee ballot, if you haven't done that for a regular voter, is October 29th, which is what, Thursday, by 5 p.m. Or if you're indefinitely confined, you have an extra day on the 30th. And I'll tell you what indefinitely confined means in an upcoming slide soon here. The problem with that is if you haven't requested your ballot and you wait till those deadlines, it could be real iffy if you're going to get your ballot in time. And you're certainly not going to have time to receive it, complete it, and mail it back. You would have to for sure return it in person to have your vote counted. So if you haven't done it, I would do it as soon as you get off this presentation and get that requested. We'll walk you through how to do that. And you do have to have the ballot returned by November 3rd at 8 p.m. And then of course, election day is Tuesday, November 3rd, and polling places are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. throughout the state. And I see some chat things coming up, so we'll try to take questions as we go. I don't know, Wendy and Jason, I think maybe we can look for each other when we're not talking what the comments might be.
Yeah, I think right on the chat, it's the link for people who get credits for this, where they can go to get the credit for being here. So right now, but I'll keep watching while you guys are talking. And if you can do that when I am, that'd be great.
Okay, great, thanks. So photo ID is something that can be pretty confusing for some people. So we wanted to just let you know what the requirements are for a photo ID. So most voters in Wisconsin have to show an acceptable photo ID when they're voting or by their absentee ballot. So there's some exceptions to that, such as like a voter who's indefinitely confined. But an acceptable photo ID for voting doesn't have to include your current address. So that's been a big source of confusion. People think they can't vote if you've moved and you didn't get your address updated on your driver's license or state ID yet. That's not true. It doesn't have to be current when you go to vote. It has to be current when you prove your address when you're registering. So there's a big difference there. There's a whole lot of information out there about the photo ID law, and the best place for that information is bringit.wi.gov. It's kind of hard to see people, but I'm just wondering if people can raise their hands. How many of you have a photo ID? A couple people there that have their cameras on anyway. Okay. Does anybody not have a photo ID to vote? Not sure where, a couple people, okay. So hopefully this will help. It's gonna be something that you need to vote. And like I said, there's a number at the end of this that you can call if you need one-on-one assistance, or you can go to the voter hangout room this afternoon as well for one-on-one help with any questions. So these are examples of what are acceptable photo IDs. We keep saying acceptable photo IDs. Most people, when they vote, use their Wisconsin driver's license, but some people who can't drive, for example, will get a state issued ID from the Department of Motor Vehicles. So it looks similar to a driver's license. It doesn't give you the ability to drive a car, obviously, but it does officially identify who you are, and that would work for voting purposes. And then there's a lot of these other things as well that may work for some of you out there. If you're in the United States Uniformed Services, you would get an ID, a passport would work. Veterans Affairs, if you get something from your university or tech college that has your photo ID on it, a tribal ID, certificate of naturalization, And then there's also this, it's like a receipt up in the corner here. So if you went to apply for a photo ID, you're not going to get that ID right there. They have to mail it to you. What you get is this piece of paper, and it's got your photo, and it is official that you can use this for voting purposes until the actual ID comes in the mail. So if you haven't gotten one yet and you go to the DMV and we're only a week out, you can still vote using that piece of paper. That's what that means. So what to do if you don't have acceptable photo ID for voting, and some of you raised your hands, you can get a free photo ID for voting at the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV. You need to contact their voter ID hotline at 844-588-1069. They will give you information on what to do, what to bring, hours, things like that. You can also go to their customer service center page at that big long website there. And again, bring it to the ballot has all the information about photo ID that you would need. And then the Wisconsin Voter ID Coalition, which is different than the Disability Vote Coalition, the Voter ID Coalition will help you with questions specific to the photo ID. And they may be able to help you with transportation options to get to a DMV. So what you need to just know is that you can get a free photo ID for voting if you don't have one yet. And there are a couple of resources to help you find the location, because that will be different in every area. Okay, so I'm going to throw this part over to Wendy.
So am I registered to vote? So this is, I had a caller yesterday who called, and he recently became a citizen and was excited to be able to vote because you have to be an American citizen. And he was just really taken aback that in Wisconsin, we have to register to vote. Just because you're a citizen doesn't mean that you automatically are in the registration for voting. So you have to register to vote. And so you need that proof of residence, like what Jenny talked to you about, not the photo ID necessarily, but the proof of residence. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that after a while, in order to register to vote. So what you're saying when you register to vote is that I'm an American citizen, I'm over 18, and I live where I'm voting. So are you registered to vote? Well, you can check that at www.myvote.wi.gov. And you might say to yourself that, well, I can't go to that website because I don't have internet access, or maybe you're just not a person who's comfortable using the internet. So what you can do is you can pick up the phone and call me at the number on the group chat, that 1-844-DISVOTE 347-8683, and I can look it up for you. And so using your name and your birth date, you can look up what your registration status is. And you can even update that online. Right now, if you're not registered, we're within the time frame that it's too close to the election to register and be able to vote in this election online, but you can still register in person. You can do that at an early voting location. You can do that at your municipal clerk's office. And you can even do it on polling day at your polling place in Wisconsin. So the time doesn't run out to register in Wisconsin, as long as election day isn't over, you have time to register to vote for this election. So that's great news. We can go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about registration. This is that cool myvote.wi.gov site. You can see up here that up at the top that there's a gray bar up there that says my voter info. And right on there, it will tell you if you're registered. If we were further from the election, if it were sooner, you could actually register online. There's that darker box up on the top, and that got dark because we clicked on it. And so you could register to vote online, which is so cool. Right now, we're too close to this election to be able to do that online, but you could do it usually. So there's a lot of other things you can do on this My Vote site too. We're going to mention that too after a while. So next slide, please. So what do you need if you're going to go register to vote? You have to provide proof of residence. Remember, I talked to you about that. I just mentioned it. And so if you're doing it online, again, we're too close to this election to do it online, but if you're going to register, after this election, I know a family, their son turns 18 9 days after this election. So he misses voting this time, but he can register online. Once he turns 18, he'll have lots of time until the next election, and he can go ahead and do it online if he'd like. And so you could do that at My Vote as long as you have a current ID or current driver's license. So this is talking about registering to vote by mail. You can't do it by mail, but you can print out the voter registration, the application from the Wisconsin Election Commission site. And Milwaukee even has an application that you can print out that's Milwaukee specific. So you can go to the Milwaukee Election Commission site to do that. I think probably some of the bigger municipalities have that. There are so many municipalities that it's very different from each one, but that Wisconsin one works for everyone. And you can fill that out so that you reduce your time at the polling place, or you reduce your time at the municipal clerk's office or at the early voting location, and take it in with you if you'd like to. When you go in, you do need to bring proof of residence. So that could be like a utility bill. It needs to be within the last 3 months. It could be like a lease agreement, like for your apartment. It could be like your mortgage bill with your current address on it. It could be a paycheck or pay stub from your job that has your current name and address on it, and it has to be within 3 months. It could be your university ID card or other official documents showing your name and address. There's a whole list of those at proof of residence at the My Vote site, where it says proof of residence there. And that clickable link there it's available to you on our materials as well that we're going to share with you at the end. So next slide, please. What's the difference between the proof of residence and the photo ID? I'm sorry, my doorbell is ringing. I guess I must be getting a shipment. So what's the difference between the proof of residence and the photo ID? Well, the proof of residence shows that you live where you say you live. So that can be the utility bill, it can be the pay stub or the bank statement. It can also be the driver's license if your current address is on that. And then your photo ID can be that same driver's license or that same state ID. It could also, your photo ID could be your US passport. So your photo ID is meant to show you are who you say you are. You're the voter who's voting. I'm Wendy Hine and I'm voting as Wendy Hine. So that's the proof of residence, is to show that I live where I say I do. The proof of the photo ID is to show that I am who I say that I am. Next slide, please. And so the proof of residence you show when you're registering, I just thought of this, and then the photo ID you show when you vote or when you request the absentee ballot. So they're kind of, you show them at different points of the process. If you do everything on the same day at the polling place, if you register at the polling place and vote at the polling place on election day, then you would do the proof of residence and the photo ID at the same time. But they're for different purposes. So next slide, please. Can I still vote if I have a guardian? This is a question that we we talk to people about all the time. So in Wisconsin, when people go through guardianship, there's sort of default setting, like all of us who use computers use a default setting. That means like the way that it stays is that the person retains their right to vote unless the court specifically takes it away. So they can take away people's voting rights at the guardianship, but they don't necessarily. So the court has to expressly remove someone's voting rights. And a lot of people call us and say, well, I don't know what my guardianship says. And so what you have to do is you have to look at the paperwork that you got from the guardianship proceedings. And it's a real official document that's called the Determination and Order Form. And on that document is a check, like a list where you can like check the box. And one of those would be that the person, their right to vote is removed by the court. And if that box is checked, then the person loses the right to vote. If you don't know, and if you don't, if you're don't have that document or access to that document, you can ask your probate court for a copy. Another way to find out would be to call your municipal clerk. They have a list of people who are ineligible to vote in their area, who aren't eligible to vote. And so you could say, is my name on your list of people who are ineligible to vote? And they could look and see if Wendy Hine is on that list. So they could tell you. So a person who has a guardian and has lost their right to vote, a lot of those people later on might develop an interest in voting and an understanding of voting. And they will come to us and they will say, I would really like to have my right to vote back. And that is actually something that you can do. You can work to restore your rights to vote. We have a document that can actually help you get started with it. So again, that'll be at our website if you want to take a look at it after this. But all hope isn't lost. If you are a person who had your voting rights removed in guardianship and you would like to get your right back, that is something that's possible to do. But it's a process. So it's something that we do have guidance about. So our website is there. You can look up the resources there, or you can always, and it's also in the group chat. So next slide, please. How do I request an absentee ballot? Well, you only have Thursday to do that. And
Wendy.
Like Thursday's the last day. I'm just not sure that there's really enough turnaround time from Thursday until Tuesday to actually get that ballot. I've helped a couple of people in the last couple of days who had ballot issues request theirs, and the election workers did put the ballot in the mail right away. So hopefully they will get it, but there's not a lot of time left to request that absentee ballot. If for future elections you want to request an absentee ballot, you can go to myvote.wi.gov. It's a really easy process. I did it online. I took, as long as your photo ID is current with your current address, you can do it online. Super easy. I was really nervous about, I don't know why. I'm on my phone all the time. I should be comfortable, but I was really nervous about taking that picture and uploading it. Like, oh, this is going to be hard. And I did it, and it was like 3 seconds later. And then I was all excited, and I did it for my mom, and it was all exciting. So you can do it. You technically can do it until Thursday, but I just feel like the timing is a little bit questionable. So people can also request absentee ballots by email, as long as they include their full name, their voting address, which election they want a ballot for, and you can also request it for the whole calendar year too, and you need to include your mailing address. So you can do those things. still, but again, I would caution you on timing. So you can also go in person and request an absentee ballot in person. There are people who are indefinitely confined voters, and we're going to talk about that later. However, I just want to mention that those are people who really might want to think about still, it might still be worthwhile to do these online things at this point, though, again, for this November 3rd election might be questionable. So I'll turn it over to Jenny to talk to you about early voting and and I'm sorry, Jenny, I was supposed to let you tell them about requesting an absentee ballot. So I'll turn it over to Jenny now.
No worries. Okay, so what is early voting and in-person absentee voting? People might hear that and not quite understand what that means. Has anybody here done that? Have voted early in person? Doesn't look like it. Okay. So what that means is you can go to your local clerk's office before the election, and right now we're in the time period where you can do this to vote. They refer to it as in-person absentee voting. So you're not voting on election day, but you're going in person. You're not just receiving the ballot at your house. If you need to register, you can do that at the same time. We've mentioned that a couple times now, and that's important to be aware of for those of you who aren't registered yet. It's also really important to know that each municipality sets their own dates and hours for when they're going to offer in-person voting, and locations too. Sometimes the locations are different. It might be in some rural areas, it's actually at the clerk's house instead of maybe the clerk's office. Some hours are very limited. Some places it's quite open, but you can check that out also on the My Vote Wisconsin website. New to the website this year is that they are now including those hours if the municipality provided the information. If they didn't provide the information when you go there, it's not going to say anything. If they did provide it, you're going to see the hours. So if you go to the website and you don't see that there, then you need to call your municipal clerk and ask them. And we really recommend you do that ahead of time, just to save yourself frustration if you try to just show up and see if they're available and they're not. That's just a lot of running around for nothing. So we recommend you contact your clerk or look on the website first to see when you can do that. So we've mentioned indefinitely confined a couple times now, and I think this is an area that a lot of you might be interested in. Indefinitely confined is basically if you're a person who, because of your disability or age, maybe an illness, they sometimes refer to it as infirmity, you can decide for yourself that you want to be indefinitely confined, meaning decide for yourself means you don't have to have a doctor's note or anything official from anyone saying that you're indefinitely confined. And it doesn't mean that you can't leave your house, that you're stuck in your bed all the time. It can just mean that you have difficulty maybe going to a polling place. Maybe it's very unpredictable. You don't know from day to day if it's going to be easy enough for you to get out and about or not. If it's real unpredictable, you might want to consider the indefinitely confined option. The Wisconsin Election Commission has also said that they consider issues with COVID, like if you're more, if your body would be more compromised because of COVID, if you were to get it, you can consider yourself indefinitely confined. So if you're immunocompromised, you might want to consider selecting that. What that means, if you decide that you're going to be indefinitely confined, is that you will have an absentee ballot mailed to you automatically for every election until you don't return a ballot or until you've asked to stop indefinitely confined. So it's not permanent. You can change your mind later. But it's nice that you can request that status, and then you just don't have to think about it again. It's just going to show up. You also, if you determine yourself to be indefinitely confined, don't need to provide a photo ID. So we talked a lot about photo ID and how important it is. There's very few exceptions to having to provide the photo ID. This is one of those exceptions. So there is a requesting an absentee ballot form or doing it on the website. In both places, you can check off if you're indefinitely confined or not. So again, like Wendy said, we really, are kind of encouraging more at this point to maybe look into going in person absentee voting, because we're so close, and there's a really good chance that even if you requested it today with 1 week out and all the issues we've had with the Postal Service, that it might not come. Although if you were to request a ballot and it didn't show up, you can still go to your polling place on election day and vote. So there is still an option for you there. But again, we're very sensitive to working with people with disabilities and having, disabilities that give you a higher chance of problems if you get COVID, trying to steer people away from having to go in person. So if you live in a group home or a nursing home and you want to vote absentee, and again, you don't have that photo ID, can you still vote? Yes. So you can use the indefinitely confined option I just told you about, where you can make the request without having to provide the ID, or the care facility administrator or the person in charge of where you live can sign this certificate. It's called EL-122SB, but they can sign that certificate. And so they're basically verifying your identity if you don't have your own photo ID. And we did put a link there for anybody who might be supporting people with disabilities that would find that helpful. There's a direct link to that form. So there's a couple more options there. And then who can I get to sign as a witness on my absentee ballot? So anybody who gets an absentee ballot needs to have a witness verify that they were the one who filled out the ballot and put it in the envelope. So a witness has to be a US citizen and they have to be over the age of 18. And it can be anybody except an employer or a union representative. So a friend, a neighbor, a roommate, spouse, care worker, anybody that you would have connection to in your life can be that witness. Some communities have like a drop-off location for the ballot, and sometimes you can ask a staff person there to witness it if you don't have anybody else who can do that for you. COVID has been a challenge big time with getting witnesses for people who live alone, and we're especially isolated, especially in the beginning of COVID with the stay-at-home order. It's, I think, a little bit easier now, but can still be challenging. So in the case of COVID still being an issue, sometimes you can watch them through a window, so you don't have to be in the same room, and then just hand them the ballot through the door, and that person could mail it back for you. So we try to get creative with how to handle the witness signature. If you really just can't find anybody and you don't know what to do, the best thing is to contact your clerk and see what they recommend. So the point of the witness is that they saw that you completed it, but they're not supposed to see who you voted for. So I did this for my mom a few weeks ago, and she was at the counter behind me doing it, and while I was here, so I could clearly see she was filling it out herself, but I had no idea who she voted for. And then she put it in the envelope, and I watched her do that. That's an important part of being a witness as well. And then I took the envelope, and you can see on here highlighted, you have to sign it, and then you have to put the address. And this address is where a lot of people are getting hung up. They're not putting the address. The witness is not. And your ballot will be rejected if that is not included. So we do a lot of education on that to make sure people have all the aspects that they need on their ballot to make sure it's counted. So make sure someone signs it and puts their address. Now, some places, when they're getting the ballots back, they're not allowed to open it until election day, but at least if they see on the envelope that there's a problem, they're trying to get back in touch with people to get that address so that the vote is counted. But of course, you know, some municipalities are bigger than others. Some have better capacity to do that than others. But the closer we get to election day, the less time they're going to have to be able to, you know, catch those kinds of things. So just be very careful when somebody is doing the witness part of your ballot. How do they know if you received your ballot? So again, this is part of the MyVote website that Wendy showed you earlier. And this is another thing, if anybody's ever ordered from like Domino's, they've got that tracker thing about, we got your order, we're putting it in the oven. And it's the same thing with your absentee ballot status. So they can see when you requested it, when they approved it. A lot of times that's the same day. When it's being prepared, when it's being sent, when you think you're gonna get it. And then I just checked mine last week and it said it was received. So I feel better knowing somebody had that in their hand and somebody had to go to that computer and say they got it. So I feel pretty good that it's there and I've done what I need to do. So that's a really nice feature of the MyVote website. Again, I can't stress enough, if you do decide to request a ballot and you hadn't done that yet, if it didn't get there by election day, you can still go and vote in person. And then something brand new on the website is we have been collecting lots of options for getting to the polls on election day. Because some people just prefer to vote in person. They want to go in person, or there's many reasons you might have to vote on election day. So if you go to our website, disabilityvote.org, and find a ride to the polls, it's set up by areas of the state. So you can look and see, you know, do we have anything for your area of the state? You know, it's only as good as what we're hearing from different agencies. There's a lot of people out there trying to pull in this information so we can provide it to people. But there's quite a lot of options there. And if there isn't a specific group or company or, you know, taxi company or something that's offering rides to the polls, there's a fact sheet that will give you ideas on how to get to the polls. So there's a couple options there if transportation's a barrier for you. So Jason, this is where you begin. You're muted, Jason.
All right, so in-person voting tips for staying safe. Know who you want to vote for. Get in, get out. Check who is on the ballot at myvote.gov. And you can also do curbside voting. If you're not able to enter the polling site due to your disability, you can check your polling place before. One second. Sorry about that. You can go before, you can go to your polling site and check it out before you go to vote on election day. If you must get out of your car, or if you get out of your car to vote, practice social distancing. So make sure that you are 6 feet away from the person. Make sure you are wearing a face mask. In Wisconsin, it is a law that you do need to wear a face mask right now to go into any kind of building. Be patient and courteous to election workers during this difficult circumstance. And then bring your own black pen. I do that. I always bring my own so I don't have to touch anybody. And just going back to being courteous, I am also a poll worker, and it is very difficult when I have a when I have a person that is not being nice, and it's just difficult to get the whole process to go smoothly. So be patient, courteous. You're gonna get you're gonna be able to vote in person no matter what. So yeah. Next slide. We recommend using face coverings, like I said, with masks, unless you're unable to do so because of your disability or medical reasons. If you choose not to wear one, this will not interfere with your voting or your right to vote. You may be asked to remove your face mask briefly just to identify that you are who you are on your ID or your driver's license. Poll workers and election officials are required to wear face masks. So everybody that is working that day is going to have a face mask on. Clerks may establish procedures to allow for voters with facial coverings to cast a ballot safely on election day. For example, using designated areas of the polling place for these voters, or assigning poll workers with additional personnel protective equipment (PPE) to serve these voters. Next. What is curbside voting? Required by law for any voter who cannot enter the building due to their disability. The Wisconsin Elections Commission believes that individuals who are immune compromised or have symptoms of COVID-19 are eligible to use curbside voting. Curbside voting should also be available during in-person absentee voting at the clerk's or office or alternative site. So like Jenny said earlier, during absentee voting, that is still curbside voting is still an a way to vote. Contact your municipal court clerk in advance of election day to determine if the process to access curbside voting, for example, honk your horn, ring a bell, call a phone number. So yeah. Next page.
Hey, Jason, I just wanted to chime in about the curbside voting that there's been a lot of push around the state to do better signage with curbside voting and better communication about it. We've heard mixed things about, what information really is out there. Some of the large municipalities sound like they're doing that they have it on their websites, that they are adding signage. We would actually love to hear back from voters, though, if you pursue curbside voting, or if you happen to notice when you're at your polling place, if there's signage, we'd love to know. So you could email us at our email that's listed in the site here, in the group chat. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Wendy. What is accessible voting machine? Each polling place is required to have at least one accessible voting system. The accessible voting system must provide the opportunity for voters to vote privately and independently. Anyone can use the accessible voting system. Each election official must make sure it's functioning properly in each election, and that election officials are trained to operate them. Next page. All right. What are my key rights as a voter with a disability? Right to vote privately and independently. Right to access the voting place. Right to use the accessible voting machine at your polling place. Right to ask for accommodation, such as a chair to sit in rather than standing in line. Signature guide, a magnifier so that you can see where to sign or what your ballot says. And then sorry, assistant stating your name and address. Right to assistance making your ballot, just not your employer or a union representative. Next slide. More rights here. Right to curbside voting. If you can't get into your polling place as a result of a disability, you can file a complaint if you feel your rights have been violated. You may bring a cheat sheet into a polling place. So that means you can, if you know who you want to vote for and you want to remember their names, you can write them down on a piece of paper and bring that in with you. If you make a mistake, you can request another ballot from each election officials. You have up to 3 chances in order to vote. After the third one, you're not able to vote at all. So they give you 3 chances to make sure that you get who you want to vote for. No one should tell you how to vote. Next line.
All right, I think that's it for you, Jason.
All right.
And I just want to point out why this is so important, because there's no necessarily standardized training for poll workers when it comes to disability accommodation. So it can be hit or miss with what poll workers know. And we've heard stories at last year's self-determination conference of a person who brought someone with him to help him fill out his ballot, and the poll worker said that that was not allowed, and he ended up not voting. So it's important that you all understand these rights here, and that you know that, and that, you know, if that were to happen to you on the spot, Wendy's going to talk about, you know, what your options are. But there's lots of things you can do to make voting more accessible to you. So we want you to be aware of what those are. So Wendy, I think you are until the end now.
I am.
All right.
So how can I be an informed voter? This is a really difficult thing for everybody. This isn't just a difficult thing because, you know, if because we're looking at disability issues. This isn't just a difficult thing because we're from Wisconsin and our state has right now a split government. This is a hard thing. It's a hard thing with everything, trying to find reliable information. And I think probably every one of you can say that you've struggled with this. So we are always looking for, we're a nonpartisan group. So that means that we're not Republican, we're not Democrat, we're not whatever the other parties are. We are just here for making sure that people are able to exercise their right to vote. And we are always looking for resources that we can share with people. How can they get to know the candidates? I see Lisa on here and ACAP in Waukesha, and I heard really cool stuff from them about having their local representatives, the people running for local positions, having the candidates that are running, inviting them to come and talk to them. And they don't have one candidate do it. If they have one, that they have the other, kind of a thing. And that gives them a chance to really engage with these candidates. But if you're not in a position where you can get to know your candidates like that, how do you do it? Well, there aren't a ton of resources that are nonpartisan. One way to do it is to look up each candidate's website. So Google their name, look up their website, and that will give you their platform. But they're kind of a salesman, so they're trying to sell themselves. It's like when you go to a job interview and you're going to tell them all the good things about you, but you're not going to tell them, like, for example, when I get stressed out, I tend to yell at my kids. I didn't really tell my boss that when I went for my interview. It's really a problem that I have, but I did not share it at my interview. And so that's what the candidates aren't telling you, the negative things about themselves. Nor are they always, it's not always laid out in that, here's the issues that matter to me. What does this candidate think about it? So, and that's kind of how I think about it. Like, I care about Medicaid. I care about personal care worker services through Medicaid. I think about all these things that affect my life every day. And that's kind of what I want to know about the candidates. So websites that we found that are somewhat helpful with looking at candidates are vote411.org, ballotpedia.org, and wisconsinvote.org. And a lot of voting, figuring out candidates is really just reading or having, watching on TV them speak and trying to sort out what they're saying from the truth that they live. So it's difficult, and I don't have great resources to give you, but these three websites are helpful. And we will keep looking. And if you ever come across great nonpartisan resources, please share them with us. I've heard that, again, shout out to ACAP, they're working on some curriculum around this too. So I'm really interested in talking more with them. But we hear from voters all the time that it's a hard part of choosing, of voting, if you don't really know what the candidates are about. So again, another way to do that is following candidates on Facebook. It can be a little bit stressful sometimes because they say things that I don't like sometimes. So, and some of them say things that I do like, but in any case, I follow a lot of them on Facebook and get a good picture of them that way. So those are good ways to learn about the candidates. On our Disability Vote Coalition Facebook and our e-newsletters, we will be constantly sharing with you. Between us and the League of Women Voters, we do try to, if we know that there are candidate forums going on or things like that, we try to share them with our followers on Facebook. So next slide, please.
Wendy, we did have a question.
Yeah.
Where do we find our practice ballot before going to the polls?
That's a really good question. So that super cool website that we looked at on the slide earlier, that myvote.wi.gov, you can go to what's on my ballot, and you're going to put your address in. You click on it, and then it'll say, ask you for your address, and you put that in, and it will tell you what's on your ballot, which is so helpful, especially when there are like more local elections, things like a town board or a county board, where you might not be all that aware, because then it lets you look at everything that's going to be on your ballot. And again, you can bring that as a cheat sheet. You could just circle the one, you can look it all up and decide who you want to vote for, and you could then circle them, and then you would know what you want to mark when you get in there. Like Jenny, I think Jenny or Jason mentioned too, bringing a cheat sheet. So.
And Wendy, we have just like 3 or 4 minutes left. Just
I'll be
FYI.
quick. So this slide is about what I do if I run into a problem. You can ask to talk to the municipal clerk. You can file a complaint with the Wisconsin Election Commission, and we can help you do that. You're not complaining just to be difficult. It is really helpful because it shares a perspective with poll workers and with municipal clerks that they might not have. And it can help other voters not have that problem. You can call us at the 844-DIS-VOTE, or you can call the Wisconsin Election Protection Hotline too. Next slide, Jenny. Again, here's the website for filing a complaint. I just wanted to mention to you that my coworker is blind, and she uses the accessible voting machine, and she noticed that they weren't sanitizing the headsets during COVID at the August election, and she felt kind of worried about that, which I think all of you would, because you touch it, you put it on your head, all of that. And so she filed a complaint, and because of her complaint, now there was statewide guidelines put out to municipal clerks about how they should handle sanitizing those headphones. There were extra headphone sets purchased so that they can be rotated and have time to clean. So now people are able to have sanitized headsets for this. So again, your complaint is not just a troublesome thing. Your complaint is helpful. It shares your perspective and your experience. So we really encourage you. We're happy to help you file that complaint if you call me at that 1-844-DIS-VOTE number. You can also call the Wisconsin Election Commission at the number on the slide here. So Jenny, do you want to do the next slide since we're rushing here? I mean, I'll do it, but thanks. How can I make a difference after the election? We have a survey that we're doing, and we've participated in the past. Wisconsin came in second place for getting the second most surveys in the US. We would love to get the first most. So if you've already voted, or once you vote on election day, we would love to have you do the survey. It's kind of a long survey. You can go in and click on it and do it yourself. If the thought of a long survey stresses you out, you can make an appointment with me on the phone or on Zoom. I will call you and we can do it together. And again, you can contact me with the contact info in the group chat, and I would love to do that with you. And there's one more slide, I think. We have some new resources for voter education. We have all these videos that they're very, very short videos that teach you about registration, voting, voter rights, and then we even have a plain language one. So really great resources, and they're quick. So people like that. That's what we heard from you guys. So quick. And the key resources you should know about, please like us on Facebook. We're always posting new things about voting. And then please use that number or email me if you need anything with voting. I'm happy to answer, happy to problem solve. You can use that myvote.wi.gov site. It's awesome. And then for photo IDs, bringit.wi.gov has great information. And thank you so much for coming today. We are just kind of smack out of time here, but we can try to answer some questions if you have any. But thank you again for coming. Jenny, I have back-to-back sessions, so I'm going to let you answer questions and I'm going to hop off.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks. Oh, Lisa, do you have a question? Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Have a great day, guys.
You too.
Thanks, Jenny.